When Judge Judy entered the courtroom, her black robe fluttered slightly behind her, a symbol of unshakable authority that had settled countless family feuds. The audience went quiet. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Before her stood two people bound forever by a child and divided forever by pride. Michael Cooper, tall and weary-eyed, stood at one table clutching a folder filled with papers that represented 4 years of heartbreak. Across from him sat Laura Martin, her arms crossed tightly, her face painted with quiet defiance, the kind of expression that comes from years of carrying the heavier load. Between them, though unseen, lived the spirit of their little girl, 4-year-old Lily, the tiny heartbeat that made this battle worth fighting and twice as painful. Judge Judy looked at both of them, her sharp eyes cutting through excuses like glass through silk, and said in that unmistakable voice that had both comforted and terrified thousands, "Mr. Cooper, Miss Martin, let's get right to it." She summarized the case with precision. Michael claimed that Laura had sabotaged his planned visitation with Lily. He had traveled across the country only to be denied the chance to see his own daughter, and he wanted to be compensated for the travel expenses he'd incurred. Laura, on the other hand, insisted that a judge had already rescinded his visitation rights at the time, and that Michael's claim was nothing more than an emotional tantrum wrapped in paperwork. Judy's gavel tapped once a warning more than a sound, and the interrogation began. "How old is your child?" she asked, eyes flicking from one parent to the other. "Almost 4, Your Honor," Michael replied softly, his voice heavy with restrained frustration. 3.5, Laura corrected quickly, as if every half-year counted more than the last. "And where do you live, Mr. Cooper?" "Dallas, Texas. Miss Martin?" "Los Angeles, California." The contrast between the two locations spoke volumes. Once, they'd both lived under the same sun, in the same city, dreaming of something that could last. Now, 1,000 miles and 1,000 misunderstandings stood between them. Judge Judy leaned back. "When the child was born, Mr. Cooper, where were you living?" "Los Angeles," he said. "So you moved to Texas," she confirmed. "Yes, 3 months ago." "Why?" "Work. It's hard to survive in California. Too much competition. Dallas offered better opportunities, a better lifestyle." Her pen scratched against the paper as she repeated slowly, "A better lifestyle," tasting the phrase like it was bitter. "Now, when you were in Los Angeles and your child was born, were you and Miss Martin ever living together?" "No, ma'am." "And you were never married?" "Correct." "Was there ever a declaration of paternity declaring you to be the father?" "Yes, I filed for custody and visitation." "So there was a judicial order?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Do you have it?" "I don't have the original from Maryland." "Maryland?" Her eyebrows rose. "Yes, ma'am. Lily was born in Maryland. Laura's family lives there." The judge scribbled something. "So you left Los Angeles, Laura?" "Yes. I went home to my family in Maryland to have support during the pregnancy." "And did Mr. Cooper visit the child when she was born?" "Yes," Laura said cautiously. "So at that point things were civil?" "Not really," she murmured. "But he came. From Los Angeles?" Judy pressed. "Yes." "All right, that's something," Judy said, nodding. "You don't have the original order, Mr. Cooper?" "No, but I have the latest one." "Let me see it." He handed over a wrinkled document. "This was filed in July," Judy noted. "Yes, that's the most recent. On August 19th, that was the one in place." No, she countered. "I want the order that existed between 2013 and 2016. He hesitated. "I don't have that." Laura interjected. "That's because the one he's showing you isn't the real one. That's something he filed in June." Judge Judy's eyes darted between them, reading more from their silence than their words. "I see what happened," she said finally. "He filed an action on July 13th, 2016, asking for joint custody. Visitation was granted on weekends starting immediately." She turned to Laura. "Were you present at that hearing?" "No, Your Honor, I wasn't notified. If I had been, I would have been there." Judy shrugged slightly. "Shoulda, woulda, coulda. Mr. Cooper, why did you find it necessary to file on July 13th? He straightened his shoulders. "To clarify the timeline, Laura and I were in a brief relationship. We agreed to co-parent in California, but I didn't know if I could even have children. When Lily was conceived, it was a miracle to me. I wanted to make sure I could be part of her life." "Whatever," Judy muttered dryly. "But you left for Texas." "Yes, 3 months ago." "Did you tell Miss Martin?" "We barely communicate. Everything goes through the court system." "So the answer is no?" "You didn't tell her you were moving?" "Correct," she folded her arms. So you left where your daughter lives, gave no notice, and then expected to continue visitation like nothing changed. You used to see her Wednesdays and Sundays, right? But instead of informing the mother, you suddenly filed new papers and went to her school to pick her up. True, Michael hesitated. That part's true. I did go to her school. But before that, I was in contact with Laura's father. I thought it was arranged. Contacting her father isn't the same as contacting the mother, Judy snapped. She's the parent of record. You should have spoken to her directly. She refuses to talk to me, he blurted, voice breaking. Every call, every text, she blocks me. Judy sighed, the way only someone who's heard too many broken-hearted explanations could. I'm not granting your request for travel expenses, she said firmly. And I'll tell you why. When you move out of the jurisdiction and you have a 4-year-old child, you can't just appear unannounced and claim sabotage. You must send written notice, registered mail 30 days before visitation, informing her of the exact date and time. You didn't. That's on you. Michael's lips trembled. His knuckles whitened on the edge of the podium. Your Honor, I tried. She cuts off all communication. How many children do you have? Judy asked. Just one, Lily. She moved 2 weeks after getting pregnant. It's like I was just a sperm donor. The word hung in the air like a curse. Judy's head snapped up. Anyone who refers to himself that way is not using the right brain, she said sharply. You understand me? That child is half of you. That's how she's treated me, he whispered. No, sir, that's how you're treating yourself, she shot back. Now, earlier you said you didn't think you could have children. I didn't. The doctors suspected it might not be possible. And yet here we are, a healthy daughter. Seems to me you've been given a miracle, Mr. Cooper. Don't throw it away. Laura's eyes flickered, a mix of anger and something softer. We were in a relationship, she interjected quietly. Yes, Michael said, turning toward her. We were. I supported you through your pregnancy. How? Judy asked. Financially? Emotionally? I was working. She wasn't. Her mother supported her. She refused to get a job, said pregnancy made it impossible. Were you living together? No, ma'am, not yet. We were discussing it, but she moved before we could. So, not living together during pregnancy, not married, minimal communication, and you think this chaos is surprising? Judy said with disbelief. You two created this storm and now expect the court to bring you an umbrella. The audience chuckled softly, but there was no humor in Michael's face. For a brief second, the courtroom faded, and Michael saw flashes of the past. The day he found out he was going to be a father, the trembling excitement, the ultrasound photo Laura had texted him, the tiny heartbeat flickering on the screen. He'd cried that night, praying for a chance to be the dad he never had. When Lily was born, he'd flown across the country just to hold her for 10 minutes. 10 minutes that would haunt him for years. Every laugh she ever made, every word she learned, he'd missed half of them. Not because he didn't care, but because he didn't know how to fight right. Pride is a strange poison. It convinces you you're right even when you're alone. Judge Judy could see all of this without being told. Mr. Cooper, she said more gently, you say she cuts off communication, but that's where you rise above. You keep trying. You send letters. You make sure your child knows you never stopped caring. I've sent hundreds of emails, he said, voice trembling. I even went to Maryland several times, begged her to let me see Lily. Did you go through proper channels? I didn't know how. Then learn, she said sternly. Fathers don't get to stop trying because it's hard. Laura's lip quivered. You don't know what it's like raising a baby alone, she said, tears glinting. He left. He didn't call for months. I was scared, broke, and angry. Every time he came back into the picture, it was just to argue. How am I supposed to trust that? Judy looked at her squarely. Because he's her father. You may not like each other, but your child deserves both of you. The next few minutes were quieter. The tension less sharp, but more painful. Judy delivered her decision. No compensation, no punishment, just truth. Mr. Cooper, she said, you're not a victim here. You made choices. You moved without notice. You communicated poorly, and you expect the court to clean it up. It doesn't work that way. You have every right to love your daughter, but rights come with responsibilities. Do better. Then she turned to Laura. And you, stop using the child as a shield. You say you're protecting her, but what you're protecting her from is the man she needs to know. Her gavel hit the bench once, final and echoing. Case dismissed, yet something in that final strike shifted both of them. They walked out without speaking, but as they passed each other near the courtroom door, a brief glance, soft, wounded, passed between them. Outside, cameras flashed, reporters whispered, but for the first time, they ignored all of it. Weeks later, Michael sat in his small Dallas apartment staring at the photo of Lily taped to his refrigerator. For once, instead of rage or regret, he felt resolve. Judge Judy had been right. Love wasn't enough. Effort was. So he started writing letters. Real letters, not emails that could be ignored. Each one carried a piece of his heart, drawings, stories, pictures of toys he wished he could hand her himself. At first, no reply came. But on Lily's 5th birthday, a small envelope arrived. Inside was a crayon drawing of a stick man holding a balloon. Beneath it, in a child's uneven handwriting, "Happy birthday, Daddy," from Lily. Tears blurred the words, but for the first time in years, Michael smiled. Laura, on her end, had finally begun reading his letters. She'd expected manipulation but found sincerity. A man trying, stumbling, but trying nonetheless. When Lily asked about her father, Laura no longer changed the subject. Instead, she showed her the letters. "Your daddy loves you," she would whisper, and Lily's eyes would light up. Months passed. And when spring came, they met again. Not in a courtroom this time, but in a park halfway between Dallas and Los Angeles. The air smelled of rain and forgiveness. When Lily saw her father, she ran, small legs, big joy, straight into his arms. No paperwork, no orders, just love. That day didn't erase the years of conflict, but it rewrote what would come after. And somewhere, if she ever heard about it, Judge Judy would have smiled her rare, secret smile, because maybe, just maybe, her words had done what the law alone never could: make two broken people remember what mattered most. Moral lesson: life will often push people apart through distance, pride, and misunderstanding, but the bridge between a parent and a child should never collapse under the weight of ego. Communication, honesty, and persistence are the true measures of love. Don't wait for a courtroom or a verdict to teach you what your heart already knows. That responsibility is love in action, and love, when tended with patience, can heal even the longest separations.